The VapePassion Show, episode 18. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I hope you're all doing well. It's been a busy week for me. The weather is finally warm here in Colorado to where the swimming pool is about to open up. I think most pools are opening up now. They usually open up around Memorial Day. I haven't gone swimming yet, but I hope to soon, and that's gonna be nice. My neighborhood also started doing their monthly movie night. So last night, I'm recording this on a Sunday. Last night we went to the park and we saw the Minions. I've seen it before, but that was fun. Got a few mosquito bites, but hopefully there's no Zika. And this weekend I also went to the flea market, the Mile High Flea Market. I don't know if it's like other flea markets, but the Mile High Flea Market, it's an outdoor marketplace, and they have like food vendors and things like that, and then a bunch of stores. And it's pretty much like a big gathering of yard sales. So, I don't know, there's probably 200 or more sellers. It's just people selling stuff that you would find at a yard sale. I was hoping to find some vape gear there, but no luck. There is a place that does sell vape stuff, but they're a little shady and I don't know if I really trust the things that they have. I actually bought my first mech mod there. That was the Fuhattan, and it's okay. It's not the authentic Fuhattan, and the Fuhattan isn't an authentic device either. It's a clone of the Manhattan. What I have is a clone of a clone, and it's okay. Yeah, I didn't find any vape gear there, but I did end up getting my daughter some toys, so that made the trip worth it. Got her a little small figurines, and I got her a little toy kitchen set for $8, and she's been loving that. I also picked up a little camera. I don't even know if it works yet. I had to order a charger on Amazon, so hopefully it does work. Got that for $10, and I don't know what the quality of video is on this either, but I'm hoping that this is something I can take with me and do videos whenever I feel like. So yeah, it's been a fun weekend. So something I wanted to mention is that one of my podcast listeners, David, he heard me say on one of my previous podcasts that I wanted a noisy cricket, and he happened to have one that he isn't using anymore, and he asked if I wanted it. So he sent it to me and I already got it. He also sent it to me with the indestructible RDA, and I totally wasn't expecting that. I thought he was just going to send the noisy cricket, so that's really cool of him to do. And I really appreciate that. I've used it a little bit. I actually ordered the Fat Daddy safety upgrade kit that I mentioned in another episode, in that same episode that David was listening to. And I've already got it on here. So I got the atomizer cap and then a new firing button. They both fit on there. It pretty much came in a small tube, and it's just a mech mod. And then the parts, the firing pin and the 510 connector, you take them out and then it fits on the noisy cricket. So, and then I can use this, I guess, with the old parts of the noisy cricket, which I won't be doing. But anyway, pretty cool. Got that for $15, I think it was. And I also received my first Patreon contribution. So that's really exciting for me. That came from one of my YouTube viewers, Caitlin. I don't want to say her full name because I want to protect her privacy if she cares. So that's really awesome, and it really makes me want to keep doing these shows and my videos. So thanks so much, Caitlin, for that. It really means a lot to me. I'm not really positive if I'm doing Patreon correctly. Like, I'm not really publishing anything on the Patreon website. I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing that or not. I'm not too familiar with the service. I just heard about it and set it up. So if any of you guys know what I should be doing for my Patreon page, please let me know. I really want to make sure I'm doing the right thing for my contributors. So yeah, David and Caitlin, thanks so much for helping me out. And I really think that people in the vape community are just so generous, and I'm really very proud to be a part of it. So thanks again to both of you. So as for vape gear, I finally opened up some things that I've had sitting on the shelf for a while. I've been meaning to get to. I opened up the Wotofo Chieftain. It's a 220 watt box mod. And I also opened up the RDA from Wotofo. This is the Conqueror. It's a postless RDA. Came with coils and everything. And I got that all set up today. I accidentally, actually, like right before this podcast, right before the show, I took the top cap off. As soon as I took that off, e-juice just came pouring out of the airflow holes at the bottom, so made a big mess. So learned my lesson there. Make sure those airflow holes are closed before opening up the top for refilling up e-juice. The box mod itself is pretty cool. I think it looks kind of funny. I'm not sure about the looks, but I think I just don't like the way the RDA sits towards the middle. I would have liked it to sit closer to the edge of the device, but other than that, it's pretty nice. It feels good in the hand. It's really light. And the Conqueror RTA, it's pretty easy to build actually for being a postless RDA. I wasn't sure how that was going to be, or postless RTA I mean. And the flavor is really good. I haven't spent nearly enough time yet to really give my thoughts about it, but I do know that there are going to be some negatives already I've noticed, like the batteries. They're really hard to get in here. And I don't know about the paint. I've seen other mods, or I've had other mods where paint like this chips really quickly. And another thing I noticed is when you change the atomizer, it resets to temperature control mode. I guess that's not a big deal. It's better than being in temperature control mode and it automatically changing into power mode. That would suck. Oh, and the wattage and temperature settings go really, really slow. So those are just some first impressions. Other than that, from what I've seen from it so far, just in the day that I've been using it, it's pretty cool, both of them, the tank and the mod. I'll have more to talk about on those later. I also opened up the Aromomizer V2, and I haven't really used that a whole lot, but I did put a build on it, just a basic build, filled it up and used it a little bit, and the flavor's good. I have the Aromomizer version 1, the RDTA version 1, and I like that one a lot too, but I really hated that it didn't have a permanent airflow control ring. This one does, so I like that one so far too. I haven't really been using that a whole lot. I also recorded a bunch more reviews, but I haven't published those yet. These were from a local to Colorado e-juice company called Subgnome. I met the owner at a vape convention I went to last month. She hooked me up with all of her flavors, and I finally got around to reviewing those. I feel bad saying it, but I'm not the biggest fan of her e-juices. They were all okay, but nothing great. I mean, they were actually pretty good, but they didn't really match their descriptions. Some of the flavor notes were missing, and the flavor seemed just a little bit off. But anyway, you'll see those reviews up on YouTube soon. And before I get started into some of the stuff we're going to talk about here, I want to mention just everyone go to CASAA.org if you haven't already. That's CASAA.org, and follow their call to actions. Support HR 2058 and the Cole Bishop Amendment. And yeah, that's really all I have for advocacy this week. There wasn't really a whole lot going on. So let's talk about something that the vape community has been really upset about this past week. So Samantha Bee is a comedian and a former correspondent from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, who went on to create her own show, a similar show called Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. She went to a vape convention, I think it was last month. Well, actually not her, it was someone that works on the show with her. But you know, Samantha Bee's the writer, so I'm sure that she had a lot to do with it. Basically what the woman did who went to the convention, she asked vapors questions, asked e-liquid shop owners and manufacturers questions, things like that, and pretty much made a mockery of the vape community.
These people don't look like the owners of small businesses. They look like the people breaking into small businesses.
The video really highlights a lot of the bad parts of vaping. Not vaping itself, but the culture, which is a very small segment of the vape community. A lot of vapors really were upset about this. I actually got into a discussion with Quest for Vape within the comments section. He was pretty upset about it. His complaint to the video was that it's trivializing a serious issue. And I see his point and everyone else's point. I might get a lot of flack for this because I'm taking a different stance on this video. I don't really think it was all that bad. If you have a chance to watch it, you should. I'll have a link in the show notes to watch that video. This is simply how shows like this work. It's a satirical look at a serious issue. And just about everything shows like this make fun of are a serious issue to someone. Jon Stewart, he was cynical. He made fun of serious topics, and that's what made him so popular. He was funny, and it was his comedy that brought important issues to the mainstream population. And that's what Samantha Bee did here, in my opinion. I've heard a lot of people in the community, especially reviewers who are talking about this segment, that people are going to see this, non-vapors are going to see this, and think that that's what the vape culture is all about. Now, to me, it's pretty obvious that the show is comedy, and it's not to be taken seriously. And I think that even someone who's not a vapor, they will be able to see through it, just like any of us did with the segments from The Daily Show or The Colbert Report. And while she made fun of the vape culture, she also mentioned a lot of really good things about vaping.
New government regulations on e-cigarettes could give big tobacco a huge advantage in the growing vape market.
Manufacturers, many of them small companies, will have to undergo a lengthy federal review in order to stay on the market.
Unlike their smaller rivals, the big tobacco companies can afford to comply with the new rules and naturally lobbied for them in order to crush their puny competitors.
And she started the whole segment with this information. They also aired a quote from some guy.
The media is giving us such a bad name by not focusing on the good that it's helping. No one sat down and said, you know what? This is helping people quit smoking. This is stopping people from dying.
And she also mentioned the Royal College of Physicians study that says vaping is 95% safer than smoking.
At least one study suggests vaping is safer than smoking.
She interviewed the guys from ISIS, the e-liquid brand, who donate their earnings to veterans. And she interviewed a woman named Elizabeth from ChesapeakeVape.com, who is a veteran. And this woman was totally different from the rest of the crowd that she at least showed in this segment.
And yes, while many people here look like Puff the Magic Fred Durst, there was also Elizabeth. She's a veteran.
I got out of the military and I opened a vape store.
Now she could lose it all.
I don't want to quit selling vape until there's no more smokers.
And I think that was Samantha Bee's way of showing everyone that not everyone is like the people that she's making fun of in the rest of the video. And at the end of the video, she says,
Hey, you know what? Screw you, Big Tobacco. These guys are okay by me.
she also said,
Unless the new FDA rules are overturned by Congress or the courts, these small companies may all be wiped out.
so yeah, she made fun of the vape culture, but I think this is a pro-vaping piece. She never said anything bad about vaping aside from making fun of a small group of the vape culture. She could have easily, like any media does, a lot of media outlets, she could have easily used any of these debunked research studies that anti-tobacco groups use. And she didn't. I think she's pro-vaping, and I think this is a pro-vaping video. I just feel like people are getting a little bit hurt because, you know, something they love was targeted and made fun of. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. All right, so let's talk about this article from Dr. Siegel. He published a post called Why Anecdotal Evidence Proves That Electronic Cigarettes Are Helpful for Smoking Cessation. So he starts out the article saying, one of the widest scientific misconceptions about evaluating the effectiveness of electronic cigarettes for smoking cessation is that anecdotal evidence is insufficient to demonstrate that electronic cigarettes can be effective in helping smokers to quit smoking. The truth is that abundant anecdotal evidence of electronic cigarettes helping many smokers quit is actually sufficient evidence to conclude that e-cigarettes are helping many smokers quit. So he gives an example. He says, first, to understand this, we need to consider exactly why it is that anecdotal evidence is not sufficient to conclude that a drug is effective. Suppose a person with high blood pressure takes a medication for a week and her diastolic blood pressure is lowered by 5 after 1 week. There are basically 3 possibilities that could explain the drop in blood pressure. 1, it would have dropped anyway for reasons not related to her taking the drug. 2, the drop was caused by a placebo effect. Or 3, the drop was caused by the medication. To conclude that the explanation for the drop in blood pressure is number 3, the medication, we need to eliminate number 1 and number 2 as alternative explanations. So to eliminate number 1, that it would have dropped anyway, the researchers need to employ a control group, which would be a group of people with high blood pressure who are followed for a week without taking the medication to see if their blood pressure would drop anyway. So then how do we eliminate number 2, the placebo effect? The way we eliminate placebo effect is to give the control group a placebo instead of the actual medication. If this group also experiences a decline in blood pressure, then it may be placebo effect. So now let's apply the same reasoning to a smoker who decides to try electronic cigarettes and is able to quit smoking. So there are 3 possible explanations. Number 1, the person might have quit smoking anyway, even if they didn't try an electronic cigarette. The act of trying electronic cigarettes for cessation could indicate high motivation to quit smoking. But there's a major problem with this explanation. It's not consistent with scientific data. The data that we have demonstrates that smokers who try electronic cigarettes are less motivated to quit and have much less confidence in their ability to quit. In fact, the very reason that smokers turn to electronic cigarettes in the first place is that they have been unable to quit using other methods. The data also shows that smokers who try electronic cigarettes tend to have higher levels of nicotine dependence and are much less likely to quit. So in other words, the evidence supports the idea that the alternative to not trying electronic cigarettes for most vapers is not quitting, but continuing to smoke. So this alternative explanation is not viable. Okay, so the second explanation, the person might have quit smoking due to placebo effect. So the major problem with this explanation is that placebo effect is exactly what we're doing, the mechanism of action of vaping. This is a huge part of the reason why vaping could potentially be effective for cessation. The whole point of vaping products is to substitute for smoking by simulating the smoking experience. So this explanation doesn't refute the third explanation, that smoking cessation is attributable to the use of electronic cigarettes. So basically, the idea here is that the traditional way of looking at studies like this, at anecdotal evidence, just doesn't work for electronic cigarettes because the large amount of anecdotal evidence that we have showing smokers quitting successfully using vaping is strong evidence that e-cigarettes are, at least for smokers quitting, effective in helping them quit. Okay, moving on. So let's talk about this study from University of Texas Health Science Center. So they just released the results of a study that they've been doing. The study is not published yet, but the results are already online. They're claiming that their study finds that e-cigarette marketing is linked to teen e-cigarette use. So they used data from the 2014 National Youth Tobacco Survey, and they found that teens were exposed to electronic cigarette marketing message through many channels, such as retail settings, internet, print, television, and movies. Of the 22,000 teens who were surveyed, 20% of them had tried e-cigarettes before, and 9% were current users. They claim that students who tried electronic cigarettes before were 16% more likely to have encountered electronic cigarette marketing messages, and current users of electronic cigarettes were 22% more likely to have encountered a marketing message. One of the quotes here from Maria Cooper, PhD, a co-author of the study, said, "E-cigarette companies are following what cigarette companies did. There are no restrictions on the messaging they can use, and health warnings do not appear on e-cigarettes like they do on cigarette packages. Flavored e-cigarettes are widely available and appeal to youth." So first of all, that's not true. There are warnings on packages. You find them on all e-juice bottles, even though I don't believe that it is harmful, at least not in the way it's described on the bottle. And secondly, there are restrictions on the things that people can say in their marketing. So the FDA regulations is really going to clamp down on that. But for many years, as far back as since I've been vaping, 2010, companies have not been allowed to say that electronic cigarettes can be used as a cessation device. And people have been really careful about the things they say. Our industry has been self-regulating pretty well, I think. And as for the flavored e-cigarette claim, that was just dumb. Everyone loves flavors. So I think there are going to be issues with this study anyway, because they looked at a bunch of different studies using correlation. Who knows how well any of those studies were done, and I'm willing to bet they weren't done very well. All right, and here's another negative study. This one says e-cigarettes can cause lung damage. This comes from the University of Manchester. According to their new study, they claim that their research shows that chemicals found in electronic cigarette vapor have been known to lead to conditions such as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. Dr. Andrew Higham says it contains formaldehyde and acrolein, similar to traditional cigarettes, which could be harmful if taken over the long term. They investigated 3 brands of electronic cigarettes. I'm not sure exactly which ones those were, this article doesn't say, but they said they noticed a raised activity of the white blood cells following exposure to the vapor, similar to that observed in the presence of traditional cigarettes, which they also say is characteristic of COPD. Dr. Higham, he said, "Our research shows quite clearly that there are risks associated with long-term use of these devices in terms of pulmonary inflammation. There's been a lot of public discussion on e-cigarettes, but we think that the public needs to be aware of the potential harm these devices may cause, which will empower users to make informed decisions." One of the things that they mentioned is that vapor contains formaldehyde, and I think we all know by now that all of that research has been debunked because all of those studies that found formaldehyde were vaping at levels that vapors don't use. It's way too high. Their machines are testing it way too high. They're burning the cotton, they're burning the e-juice. No normal person can vape at those levels. I don't know exactly what method they used for this study. It probably wasn't the way we actually vape. I'm actually looking up a Reddit thread about this right now, and people are pointing out, because I couldn't find the study, but someone did. Well, this person says, a brief scan of the write-up shows that they were taking 10-second pulls on 24 milligram gas station cigalikes. So there you go. That's all you need to know that this study has been done completely wrong. And someone actually sent this to Dr. Farsalinos, and he said that the results of this study provide no evidence on effects of e-cig use on COPD risk, and may even be misleading for smokers who are exposed to known risk factor and may think of switching to e-cigs. So yeah, there you go. Garbage research. All right, and so Reuters, they recently did an electronic cigarette poll, and they found that e-cigarette use has stalled as health concerns grow. So they surveyed 9,766 adults, and about 10% of them use electronic cigarettes, which is the same percentage of people that they found in their survey that they did last year. But this year, they found that a growing percentage of participants expressed negative attitude towards electronic cigarettes. Last year, 38% of those people said vaping was not a healthier alternative than smoking. But this year, 47% feel that way. And then last year, 39% of those people did not believe that vaping could help people quit smoking. And this year, 43% believe that. 66% of those people believe that vaping can be addictive, compared with 61% last year, and 49% this year said it could have a similar effect to that of secondhand tobacco smoke, compared to 42% last year. And they point out that the growing concerns about vaping could already be slowing down sales, which we're seeing in the industry right now. And this is especially harmful to smaller vape shops, who are losing a lot of market share to big tobacco. Dr. Michael Siegel was actually quoted in this. He blames negative publicity for these concerns, and he believes most are unwarranted. He was quoted as saying, "There have been public health scares, and they are working. They are dissuading a lot of people from trying these products," which obviously is a bad thing. It's really unfortunate that the United States media portrays vaping the way it does, when places like the UK are seeing it as a tool to help people quit smoking. I really hope that we see a change in the way people think about this as we're fighting these FDA regulations and as these electronic cigarette manufacturers are suing the FDA. Okay, so let's talk about something more positive. So Safada has just announced that they now exceed 1,000 business members and have grown to 27 state chapters. They say that they're now the largest vapor trade association supported by businesses across the entire supply chain, which includes online retailers, brick and mortar vendors, distributors, manufacturers, professional service providers, importers, and wholesalers. So I think 1,000 business members, that's great, but I did a little bit of research to try and find out how many vape shops there are in the United States. And the latest figure that I could find is approximately 7,000, and that was in 2014. That number has likely grown way above that, probably more than double. And that's just vape shops. That doesn't include all of these other people they mentioned here, like importers and wholesalers and manufacturers and distributors, or all of the new online retailers that we have in the space now. So 1,000 business members is great, but why don't they have more? I just don't get it. I think it's really important for us to try and, talk to the people that we know and the vape shops that we go to and try and get them on board and helping with our advocacy efforts. Something else I didn't know is that SFATA has state chapters. So they have a page on their website, safata.org/local-chapters, and you'll find all of the 27 chapters here, and you can actually donate directly to your local chapter. I think that's really cool, and I would imagine especially important at times when your state is facing some type of regulations that require a group like SFATA to fight against. But just supporting SFATA in general is a good idea. And another good news, I saw this one on guide-to-vaping.com. On May 23rd, the people of West Virginia found that a proposed budget which would have increased the cost of e-liquid to 7.5 cents per milliliter, was defeated. As part of the bill that was designed to pull the state out of a financial black hole, there were 3 amendments, and one of those amendments was the 7.5 cent per milliliter tax. And Larry Faircloth, who has been in the vaping news recently because he has a petition out against the FDA, he was quoted as saying, "We are putting cigarette taxes on products that do the same job as nicotine gums and patches." So I'm sure the people of West Virginia were happy to have him there. And it's good to see that the politicians over there in West Virginia are putting health above money. Okay, and now here's some news from the UK. So diacetyl is now officially banned in e-liquids in the UK. This was announced on May 23rd. The MHRA, which is the part of the government over there that is responsible for regulating electronic cigarettes, they issued its draft guidance on e-liquids, and that includes a list of ingredients that manufacturers can't use in e-liquids anymore. That includes things like vitamins used as food supplements, stimulants like caffeine and taurine, diacetyl or diacetyl, formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, and acrolein, amongst a bunch of other things. So now it's official that UK can't use DA or AP in their e-juice, and any liquids that contain those ingredients have to be off the market by May 20th of next year. So something this article on vaping.com points out is that it's unlikely that this is going to affect any e-juice companies in the UK because most of them already don't use those ingredients in their e-juices. They're taking a more proactive approach. Most of them have already stopped using it. But these ingredients are still pretty prevalent in United States e-juices, and these juices are becoming popular in the UK. So any of these US-based e-juice companies who are putting these ingredients in their e-juices will no longer be able to sell them in the UK as of May 20th of next year. Alright, let's get into the tips and tricks and everything else section of the show. The first one I want to mention here, which I actually had in my notes a couple of weeks ago and I forgot to talk about. There are fake LG HE2 batteries on the market. Several shops have already started receiving them, and Mooch posted an update, even though this news broke a couple of weeks ago, that he's still seeing them being sold in places. So something to watch out for. If you do happen to order some of these batteries, something you can check to find out if you have fakes is that the model number will be missing the letters LG from the beginning of it. The top contact is larger than any LG top contact. The top cap seal under the insulator ring is blue and not the milky white that it should be. The metal cans of the fakes don't have the tooling marks near the top that the real ones do. The fake ones are smooth-sided. And something that Mooch warns about is that the performance is pretty lousy, that even a 10 amp discharge sends the voltage plummeting, so these are not safe batteries to use. At least not for high wattages or sub-ohm vaping. Alright, this next one is a thread I came across on e-cigarette forum. It's from a user asking if there are any good Cigalikes out there. So like you'd expect, most people are saying Cigalike sucks, don't get them. But that's not really answering this person's question. I think it's good that people are mentioning that Cigalikes typically suck, but there are also people here who make some good points in favor of Cigalikes. And I am actually for Cigalikes to a point. One person here mentions not everyone wants to hit 30 watts on day one, and I think that's a good point. Something else not mentioned here throughout this thread, and is my opinion, is that a lot of smokers also don't want a big device in their hands. They want something that as close to cigarettes as possible. at least to start with. And I think Cigalikes can be useful for that, as long as they understand that there are much better devices on the market to help them quit smoking. So a couple of the devices mentioned here that are not Cigalikes would be the Pax Jewel and the Ego AIO starter kit by Joytech. And then one person here mentioned some actual Cigalikes that he doesn't have any experience with but has heard good things about them, and that would be MIG Cigs, V2, Volt, Enjoy Basic, and Mystic Bridge. Someone else also mentions the Joytech E-Roll, and I mentioned my personal favorite, the Enjoy Daily, which I think is a great Cigalike, and I actually continue to buy these all the time. I like to keep one in my garage and one at work. They're just really nice Cigalikes for times when you don't want to blow huge clouds, or if you just want something real small to carry around. And another nice thing is that you can find them at like Walgreens and 7-Elevens for only like $8. So if you're ever like out on the town or something drinking with buddies and your battery's dying in your good vaporizer, you can just go to a 7-Eleven and pick up an Enjoy Daily, and should be good for the rest of the night. It's not going to be as satisfying, but it's going to do the job. And then another forum post on ecigaretteforum.com is a question about ultrasonic cleaners. So this person asks, do you disassemble the atomizer entirely and throw them in there with all the O-rings attached when cleaning? And there are quite a few responses here to this question. And some people are saying that they disassemble the tank as much as possible, O-rings and everything included, just take it all the way apart. And then some people are saying that yes, you can put the O-rings in, but you should leave them on the tank because they can be hard to get back on. And I think that's probably a good idea, because in my experience with taking apart atomizers is that sometimes when you pull off the O-ring, it can tear, and sometimes it can also stretch. So when you try and put it back on, it just doesn't work the right way. So I like to leave the O-rings on, but I'm not afraid that my ultrasonic cleaner is going to ruin them because I just haven't experienced that. Some other tips people give here is that painted or rubberized finishes can be tough on your devices, but that really only seems to be a problem in some of the more high-powered ultrasonic cleaners. If you just have a little tiny one like the ones that Coilmaster is selling now, which is pretty much the same one that I have. I didn't buy mine from Coilmaster, I got mine from Harbor Freight for, I don't know, $25, something like that, but it's basically the same thing. It is an ultrasonic cleaner, but it's made for small jewelry and it's not high powered. So I haven't noticed it ruining any of my devices or chipping any paint or anything like that. But if you do have a high powered ultrasonic cleaner, you probably don't want to put a device that has a delicate finish. So some good tips there. All right, now here's a thread on vapingunderground.com. The thread is titled Flavor Crisis. What he says is that it's not always easy to walk into a vape lounge and sit and try every flavor that comes to mind. So he wants to change things up a bit and order some sample packs online. That's something I can totally understand because I don't have the time to sit in a vape shop either and try all these different flavors. I've done it a lot of times, and I enjoy it. I love sitting in a vape shop and trying out all the flavors, but I just don't always have the time to do that. So I'm with this guy. A lot of times when I'm ordering from a new juice company, I'll usually order a sample pack if they have one. And if they don't have one, I usually don't order from them. I'll go somewhere else and find someone who does sell a sample pack. But there are a couple of recommendations here, some of them being Ryze e-liquid, which would be R-Y-Z-E. I've actually heard of them, and I've been wanting to try their e-juice. I totally forgot about that, and I had a note in one of my documents somewhere about ordering from them next time I got money, and I just forgot, so I'll have to order from them soon. There's Quit That Grit e-juice, Black Axis Vapors, and Madman Vapes. Someone else here also mentioned Vape Wild, and I'm a big fan of Vape Wild simply because they have so many different flavors. They have really cheap sample packs, and they're usually pretty good. I have gotten some duds from them, or just things that I don't care for, but it's so affordable that I really don't mind if I get a bad one now and then. Another one mentioned here is VerdeValleyVapes.com, and one other company that I know of is VapeJuice.com. That's spelled J-O-O-S-E, and they're kind of like Vape Wild. They sell a bunch of different flavors and it's really affordable. It's not what I would call premium juice. They're known as a budget brand, but it's pretty good and it's cheap. And for me, it doesn't really have to be cheap. I like cheap and affordable, but I love premium brands too. But I'm not willing to buy a really expensive bottle of e-juice not knowing if I'm gonna like it or not. So I prefer to buy sample packs. If I can get a 5 milliliter or a 10 milliliter sample pack, that helps me make the decision on whether or not I want to buy a larger bottle of e-juice. So yeah, if you guys have any recommendations on any good companies out there who do have sample packs, please let me know because I love sample packs. Okay, so Battery Mooch, he just announced that he's going to start testing battery chargers. That's really cool because no one that I know of has actually tested battery chargers aside from just the reviews you see on YouTube, but I want some like really technical analysis of a battery charger. So I use the Nitecore D4. It's a great 4-bay battery charger. I use it all the time. I use it daily. and I've never had any problems with it. I like it a lot, but I would really be interested in hearing what Mooch has to say about it as far as any kind of technical details or safety concerns, things like that. So he hasn't actually published any results yet, at least not at the time of this recording, but he will be testing them soon. He does mention that he's not going to do any long-term durability testing, but he will concentrate on initial impressions, initial build quality, safety, accuracy, and durability. And if you look at his outline of some of the things he's going to be looking at, so it is going to be sort of like initial impressions and not a really in-depth analysis. It's still a lot more in-depth than any reviewer has done. For example, initial impressions, he's going to look at if the display is readable, if he can easily determine the status of each battery, how easy it is to insert and remove batteries, if the buttons are placed well, if it's durable or if anything is flimsy or the buttons don't work correctly. And as for build quality, he's going to look at things like the slot springs, if the circuit board is clean and free of residual solder and flux, are any components hand soldered, if the soldering is done well and evenly, and if internal connectors and wiring is adequately sized. As for safety, he's going to look at things like reverse polarity protection for each charging bay, if each charging channel is independent or if they share charging circuits, if the circuit board gets hot in normal operation, if there's any potential for batteries to be short-circuited, if the battery contacts are designed to minimize wrap damage, if the batteries could be overcharged, if the charger stops charging when the batteries are fully charged, if the charger is unplugged but continues to discharge batteries, and if the AC adapter gets too hot while charging. He's also going to look at things like accuracy, if the voltage is consistent for each charge, and he's going to look at durability, so like the slot springs, and he's even going to drop it on the floor from 3 feet and 6 feet. So yeah, even a basic test from Battery Mooch is pretty in-depth. I'm really excited to see the results of all of these tests, and hopefully what he finds doesn't force me to go out and buy a new charger, because I've been really happy with the Nightcore D4, but if it turns out that it's not safe, at least in his testing, I might have to consider buying something else, because batteries, that's just something I don't mess around with. Alright, and now with summer upon us, this thread is timely. This is on Reddit, and it's titled "The Dangers of Vaping Outside." He mentions that bees love the scent of his dead Shriner's fruity cereal. So now that it's getting closer to summer, at least for any of you who are in warm climates right now, you've noticed that bees are attracted to vapor, and it really sucks. I hate it. I hate vaping outside because I hate bees flying near me. I've actually never been stung by a bee in my entire life. I don't know if I'm allergic or not. I don't ever want to find out. So when a bee flies around me, I kind of turn into a sissy. People really get a laugh out of it. So anyway, one person mentions here in this thread that one reason that bees are attracted to vapor could be that it contains a chemical called isoamyl acetate, which is a compound found in some flavorings, and a lot of flavorings, and it's actually a bee pheromone. There's a link here on perfumersapprentice.com, who makes a lot of flavorings for e-juice, that lists the flavorings that contain that compound. Something else someone else also points out is that many flavors have volatiles that put bees into alarm mode, which could be another reason why they seem to be attracted to vapor. So I would be interested in finding flavors that don't contain that isoamyl acetate ingredient and seeing if bees are attracted to it. I actually we have a really bad bee problem in my neighborhood. They're like on all the houses, and they're in my umbrella. I don't even want to open the umbrella I have in my yard right now, because I know there's a couple of nests in there. I should go out there one of these days and blow some vapor out there with an e-juice that doesn't have that ingredient in it and see how the bees react. Alright, and here's another thread on Reddit. This one is titled, "Reddit, what is one thing you wish e-liquid manufacturers would do?" So I went through some of the comments here. People are saying things like not charge $20 for a 30 ml bottle, not load the e-liquid with sweetener, the option to buy from online vendors, stop with copyright infringement, offer the choice of bottle type. This person says sell concentrates instead of premixes so I could adjust flavor and use my own preferred nicotine. That's a really cool idea. Put a date of birth on bottles and e-liquid bottles so that I know how long they've sat and steeped. That's another good idea, and actually I have seen that on some e-juice bottles, and I love it when they include that information. Put flavor descriptions on e-juice bottles, disclosing their lab test results so people with allergies or sensitivities don't have to gamble with their health. List all ingredients. This one says recommended temperatures for optimal flavor profiles. That's actually something that I've tried to do in the past for some of my e-juice reviews. I've contacted companies and asked them what they think is the optimal temperature or vaping setup so that I could taste it exactly the same way that the mixologist intended for it to be vaped at. I didn't ever have good luck with that. They've always just told me things like, you know, vape it at 60 watts on a dual coil. Nothing useful, so I stopped asking e-juice companies about that. This person says, use softer bottles, easier to squeeze. And that's another problem I have. One example being Vape Wild. Their little 10 milliliter sample bottles, it's really hard plastic and it's really hard to squeeze. It's annoying. Let's see. Sample packs. more tobacco flavors, more choices of nicotine levels, and that's something that I've heard a lot of people complain about too, that a lot of e-juice companies aren't offering a wider variety of nicotine levels. But something to note on that is that you can always ask. A lot of manufacturers actually will add more or less nicotine if you ask them. This person says ditch the glass and go all plastic, and he received a response from someone saying, considering how fast most of us go through a 30 ml bottle of e-juice, the whole leaching excuse for using glass over plastic seems pretty ridiculous. I don't agree with that, because a lot of e-juices, they aren't sold on the same day that they're made or even within the first couple of weeks. E-juices often sit on a shelf for weeks or even months before they're sold to a customer. So I did a little research about leaching, and I found a study. This one is about BPA, but all plastics seem to leach some kind of chemical, even chemicals that are very similar to BPA, but no one talks about that. Everyone's mostly focused on BPA. But anyway, this study from an endocrine biologist at the University of Cincinnati, he says that BPA leaches out of polycarbonate plastics 55 times faster when exposed to hot liquids or hot temperatures than under normal conditions. So, and that 55 times faster results in 32 nanograms of BPA per hour. So they don't mention what normal conditions are, but according to my math, if it's correct, I believe it's correct, I did 32 nanograms per hour divided by 55, which came up to 0.58 nanograms per hour. That would be 13 nanograms per day, 91 per week, and 2,730 nanograms per month. So a nanogram is 1/billionth of a gram. So even after a month, the exposure is really low. It might not even be worth worrying about, but I would still prefer to limit my exposure if I can. So I prefer glass. One other interesting thing that I pulled out of this thread was that one person mentioned that they wish e-juice companies would sell to Arkansas. Someone responded to him saying that he lives in Arkansas and he's had hundreds of dollars of equipment and juice shipped to him in the past year, and the only one that refuses to ship is Kidney Puncher. He says that he's ordered from Mist Hub, Elevate, ADVC, BX, Vape Juice, Vape Wild, and a company called Butters. So if you live in Arkansas, there are some companies that you can go to. All right, and this last one here is a tip for any of you who go hiking. So this person on Reddit mentioned that he went hiking late at night in the woods. He noticed that drawing had become difficult on his Atlantis tank. So the next day he went looking to see if he could figure out why. And he found a June bug had fallen into his drip tip, a big June bug. If you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes and you can see a picture of that. I've actually seen other threads related to this, people talking about like ants getting in their RDAs and spiders. And so now I always check my RDA, and there's a useful tip here. I think I might have actually mentioned this in a previous episode, but this person says if you're going to be somewhere where there's a chance of a foreign object entering your vaporizer, take a foam earplug. So yeah, that's a good tip. If I'm ever out hiking with my vaporizer, I'm definitely taking an earplug, because I'm not going to vape a bug. Okay, so that's going to do it for this week. You'll find the show notes for this episode on VapePassion.com. You can follow me on Twitter at VapePassion, and I'm also on Facebook. If you're listening to the podcast, you can follow my YouTube channel, VapePassion. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can listen to my podcast. Just search iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher for The VapePassion Show. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to email me, alex@vapepassion.com. And that's it. I hope to see you all again next week.